Alright folks, chapter 10, the skeleton. Alright, I talked enough at last episode. This episode's going to be all code, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. We're going to build up the beginning of our index HTML. So I'm going to start off with an exclamation mark and then just go ahead and hit enter, and then VS Code's nice enough to do everything else for us. And every time I'm starting a new website, I always like to start with the nav bar. It just is the easy way to get things started, you know, especially if you know it's going to be mostly static. You want to I like getting it out of the way. So we're going to get an unordered list going on there. And then for our first one, we're just going to do a home route, in fact. But we just want to make sure that we're doing the relative links like we talked about. And so we need to make sure that, we'll talk about what we're going to do with this in a minute. And then next, we're going to do another one. And indeed, this is going to be about, a good guess. This one is going to be products. Close that guy out, and then we're going to have another one. This one is going to be the cart page, and just let that close out. And now with the cart, we actually are going to have our dynamic spans right next to it. And the first one's just going to be the cart count, and that one's going to be 0. That was a really good guess, Copilot. I think it knows my other page is open. And then this one is going to be the cart total, in fact. And so from there, that is most of it, but we also, don't forget, had our inputs up here that we need to be able to use later for the user input. The first one, and now you want to do these all as list items so that it makes it easier for accessibility. And that's also why we're doing this next part with this ARIA label, because it's not going to have a label next to it. We want to make sure that if somebody's using a screen reader, they're going to know what's going on here. And it's just a text input with a placeholder that says search. And that's going to be the rest of it right there. Moving on from there, we just have one last thing, which is the toggle theme. I know it's reading my other file, or it's just to see me type this out enough times. But we just have a button. We want to make sure we have an ID so we can easily find that button. And then just put toggle theme in there so that the user knows what the button is for. And so that's going to make that end of that, and that is our nav bar. And so from there, we're going to have everything else, and that's it. That's everything else. And then at the end, it is reading my other file. Otherwise, how does it know where my website is? That is kind of creepy, GitHub Copilot. Look at it. But yeah, that's my footer. I guess that's handy. So it's just a link. It's just, the whole idea is it's going to make it more obvious as we navigate around. And that is the entirety of our HTML shell. And so from there, I'm just going to quickly move into some CSS. And we are just going to go ahead and, I'm not going to do inline styles. I'm not an evil person. I'm just playing. It's handy whenever you need it. I am going to do an interesting thing here, which is that we are just going to have our body, the HTML body, the whole thing is going to be our main container. And so we're just going to absolutely position everything right in the top. And we're going to hide the overflow, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be absolutely positioning the footer on the bottom, and we don't want things to overflow on top of the footer, so we need to hide it. But I'll fix that later, because otherwise we can't scroll down. So we want to make sure this takes up the whole screen, and we don't want any margin or anything around it, or else it's going to be ugly. There's going to be some weird, we have a dark theme, you're going to have a void outside of it if you don't do it right. And then from there, we're just going to be doing, it's guessing, it has to be reading the file. It's so convenient. I'm not even that mad about it, but like, it's weird that it's like literally I haven't had to type a single thing. But we are doing a flex box, and we're making sure everything is nice and centered. And just because we're doing this, it means that everything's going to be pretty much responsive from this point on. The only other thing that we're really going to worry about is the nav bar. But let's go ahead and design our themes that we were talking about. And here's the first one. It's just the only one that's not offensive. It's just a dark background with some light color text and some nice blue links. And then next we're going to have our purple theme. And I mean, I kind of like the purple theme. I'm colorblind. I apologize if this is not actually purple, but it feels purple to me. And then we are going to change the link color because that's actually the same color. And then we are going to have a green theme. And obviously, these are not the best themes. I've made a big point of that. But the whole idea is that I'm showing you that it's pretty simple, especially if you are controlling the main area, that you can just make sure. Now, I don't think that I actually did apply the, one thing I want to make sure that I do is apply our standard theme here. And that's going to be dark because, as I said, it's the only one that's not terrible. But let's go ahead and finish up this styling here. We are just going to take the nav and the footer, and like I said, we're absolutely positioning these. So we just want to make sure they take up the whole space, and we want to absolutely position them. And then I think it's kind of, they look better whenever you keep them dark, instead of the whole thing changing color, so you can kind of see where the header and footer are. But you can do whatever you want to do. Obviously, I'm not the best designer. You can see this website for yourself. Now we want this nav bar to stay on top, and that's going to be an unordered list that is just a flex box that we are just justifying evenly. I think that looks best. I don't know. That's kind of a judgment call right there. But this one's not. I guess you could do flex start there. Yeah, I guess flex start would be alright. But I don't want any bullets or anything like that. So I'm taking off the list style. But you can keep the list so it's easier for people with screen readers. Let's make sure that that looks okay. It'll be all right when we save it. And then we are going to do that main section. This is the most important part of our website. And like I said, if we don't do this overflow Y, then it's not going to, we won't be able to scroll down on the products page. We won't see everything. And then I just did a little bit, I mean, I'm doing this absolute positioning hack, and it's just like, I'm making room for the header, and then I'm making room for the footer. This is not the best design. My entire idea was that the CSS section should not take a million years. I just want this to look decent. And for that reason, we're just going to do a little bit of work on the images, because otherwise they would be absolutely awful. And luckily we have this cool new aspect ratio thing that we can do. And when you combine that with object fit, it's like pretty much impossible to mess up. I thought maybe you should use object fit cover there, but I think contain is what I'm going to do. I think the pictures look okay. And then from there, we just need to make sure that our footer is on the bottom. And that is all of our CSS for this project. And then lastly, we're just going to do a little script here at the end to do a little example at the end of this chapter, because you're probably already annoyed with me. So we're just going to do a little example here. And so we're going to make this toggle theme here, but we're not going to do all that other crazy stuff that it wants me to do. And get element by ID toggle theme, and we're going to take that and we are going to say add this event listener, because we're not going to do any of our man, I don't think that wouldn't work, would it? Especially because I'm doing const. So I'm not saving it to local storage just yet. I just want to show the limitations of what happens in the browser. I think I'm just going to do this really verbose. Document, body. We're just doing the body. So class list contains dark and document. Does he get the idea yet? Move, and then so we're going to take off the dark, and then for that, yeah, there you go, buddy. And then an else if, because we want to make sure that we are taking it off and putting it on, because we're doing this all in a single page, and I don't want to set it and not be able to have one rule over the other. Sorry about that, but you can kind of see the thought process when you're working in a single page environment. So what we have here is we have our toggle theme, and it's just the button that we have on the top. And I'm just going to add this little event listener, checking to see what's inside of it, and taking that out and putting another one in. And it's a nice little cycle where if it's dark, then it's purple. If it's purple, then it's green. If it's green, then it's dark. And it's very, very simple. Let's go check out, see what we got here. So one thing I am going to change that Copilot did here is it put the zeros in here. We're actually going to be doing that dynamically. And I think that having the number there is distracting. So we're going to go ahead and take that out. And it makes this look a little bit better. Oh man, it didn't capitalize products either. That was probably me. There we go. Now that I am satisfied with my neurotic self, we can press this toggle theme button, and you can see that it's doing what we want. But problem is, if we refresh, it's gone. And even if we press one of these buttons, look at that weird flash. Wasn't that strange? Oh, that's right. We haven't changed the link behavior. And so every single time it is destroying the DOM and building it back from the beginning. And as you remember, we set the dark theme as this initial state of the app. And so if the user changes that and we don't save it, then we lose that state that they are asking for. And we need to make sure that we fix that in the next few chapters. The main important thing that we're going to fix in the next chapter is this internal navigation behavior. We want to make up a class, some sort of way of changing these links where they don't refresh the entire page. We just want to take the URL that they lead to, put it in the address bar, and then load what they would get if they were to hit enter in the address bar, like this. So, except there would be a cart page. So, that's what we're going to be tackling next time as we build our router. Things are happening.